People had mere minutes to grab what they could and flee. We're witnessing wildfires that are shattering records as we speak. Washington and Oregon have both declared states of emergency, and most people tuned into the news have no real sense of how severe this actually is. This isn't just a rough fire season. This is turning into one of the worst stretches either state has ever seen on record. And we're still only in the first week of August. Peak fire season in this region typically runs through September, so what I'm about to cover isn't the ending. It's really just the middle of the story. Stay with me, because I'm going to break down every major fire currently burning, what shifted overnight, and one particular development that I don't think is getting nearly enough attention, even though it should be leading every newscast. Let's begin in Tonasket, where the Sinlahekin fire has grown into one of the largest fires burning anywhere in the country right now, and that's not an exaggeration for effect. As of this morning, it's scorched more than 10 to 900 acres and sits at just 5 containment. In other words, crews have only just begun locking down the fire's edges. 9 days in, and they're still fighting for basic control, not claiming victory. Level 3 evacuations, meaning leave immediately, don't wait, don't pack, slowly are in effect west of the Okanogan River, all the way to Anna Mountain, covering Ellisford, Pine Creek, and the Palmer Mountain area. Over 1,000 personnel are now assigned to this fire alone, and suppression costs have already exceeded $9 million, a number that will only keep climbing the longer it burns. Now let's turn to Lake Chelan, one of Washington's most stunning destinations, a place people travel from across the country to visit every summer. The fire burning there, called the Little Giant Fire, has a deceptively gentle name. It's already consumed close to 59,300 acres and remains at 0 containment. Along the South Lake shore from Pyramid Creek to 25 Mile Creek, residents are under Level 3 orders get out now. Further along the shoreline, people are under Level 2 and Level 1 orders, meaning stay ready to leave at any moment, keep the car packed, the tank full, and your phone charged. Over in Spokane, the fires are smaller in acreage, but they're burning through a city rather than open land, and that changes how much attention they draw. The Oregon Trail, fire wait. The old trails, fire has burned about 3,700 acres. The Autumn Lane fire is close behind at roughly 5,900 acres. The Fairview fire is smaller, just over 1,000 acres. All 3 remain at 0 containment, though officials say fire behavior has eased somewhat compared to the weekend when things were genuinely chaotic. Wind remains everyone's biggest concern, because in a city, a wind-driven fire doesn't just consume brush. It leaps from roof to roof, fence to fence, tearing through neighborhoods far faster than most people anticipate. All 3 remain at 0 containment. I want to clarify what 0 containment actually means, because it's frequently misunderstood. It doesn't mean nothing is being done, and it doesn't mean crews have given up or that the fire is running completely unchecked. It means firefighters haven't yet completed a control line around the fires, full perimeter, that they're confident will hold if conditions shift. Picture it like digging a trench that has to fully encircle the fire before it counts as contained, and containment stays at 0 no matter how many crews, engines, or aircraft are deployed. A fire can stop spreading entirely and still sit at 0 for days, simply because the perimeter work isn't finished. So don't assume a fire at 0 is spiraling out of control. This very second, it may just mean the containment work is still underway, and for a fire this size, that can take weeks. Because of this evacuation, orders and warnings remain active around Spokane, and officials are urging people not to return home, even if conditions appear calmer, since things can change rapidly. The number of structures lost during the fires, first explosive weekend when it caught entire blocks off guard overnight, sits at around 600 homes, buildings, and businesses. That figure hasn't been fully updated, and when it is, it will almost certainly rise. Damage assessment teams are moving block by block, house by house, and they aren't finished. Some of the footage from these neighborhoods, streets where half the houses are gone and the other half untouched, is genuinely hard to watch. Now back to the fire I believe deserves far more attention. The Sinlahekin fire. I've spent time in that part of Washington myself, and it's difficult to convey how much is quietly being lost there while the country's attention stays fixed on Spokane. This fire ignited on July 26th from a lightning strike in the Loomis State Forest, north of Tonasket, near the Canadian border. On July 31st, it measured about 3,200 acres. Less than a week later, it had surged past 100,000. The kind of explosive growth that typically only happens when wind-dry fuel and bad timing collide at once. The fire is pushed toward Palmer Mountain, Rattlesnake Peak, South Pine Creek, and areas west of the Okanogan River, continuing to burn across places like Tillman Mountain and Quartz Mountain on its northern flank. As a result, Level 3 evacuation orders now cover Tonasket, Ellisford, the north and south Pine Creek areas, Loomis and Palmer Mountain, essentially everything west of the Okanagan River, stretching toward Anna Mountain, along with newer additions like the Cumberland Road area power has been knocked out from Tonasket all the way to the Canadian border, meaning some residents aren't just displaced, they're sitting in the dark, waiting to learn whether they still have a home to return to containment remains in the single digits after more than a week of burning, even with nearly 1,100 personnel now assigned. A shelter is open at the Community Cultural Center in Tonasket for those displaced, and officials have been holding community meetings to keep residents informed as the situation continues to evolve day by day. Here is why I think this fire is getting the coverage it deserves. And I want to walk through the reasoning because it says a lot about how disaster coverage works. Generally, Okanogan County has only around 4,000 to 42,000 residents spread across an area larger than the entire state of Connecticut. With that few people across that much land, you simply don't get the same concentration of cameras, reporters, or dramatic street-level footage. Spokane, by contrast, has around 23,000 people concentrated in one place, the second largest city in the state. So even though the Sinlahecan fire is many times larger in total acreage than all three Spokane area fires, combined it's burning in a place with far fewer people around to film it, post about it, or report it. And unfortunately, news coverage tends to follow available dramatic footage, not the actual scale or severity of the disaster. A burning house on a city block makes for gripping video. 100,000 acres of remote forest and grassland burning quietly in a sparsely populated county doesn't even if it represents a far greater total loss. The people evacuating from Tonasket, Ellisford, and the surrounding areas are experiencing the exact same fear, uncertainty, and loss as those evacuating in Spokane. Their homes matter just as much. It's simply not being captured on camera the same way, and it isn't reaching nearly as many screens. And this isn't unique to Washington. It happens every fire season in every state. A fire tearing through a small town gets wall-to-wall coverage because enough people are there to record and share it within minutes. A fire tearing through a sparsely populated rural county barely gets mentioned, even when it's larger, even when it threatens a comparable share of homes relative to population, even when the personal toll for affected families is identical. It's not that anyone is deliberately overlooking places like Tonasket. It's simply that coverage naturally clusters where the cameras already are, and there just aren't many cameras out in Okanogan County right now. Now, here's the development I mentioned earlier, and once you understand it, it's genuinely alarming Lake Chelan. I've visited it myself, and it's one of the most breathtaking places in the state. Deep blue, water, steep mountain walls, the kind of scenery that ends up on postcards. The Little Giant fire is now burning over nearly the same ground that burned there previously, which tells you just how dry and primed this landscape has become. It sparked from a lightning strike on July 15th. I actually watched an earlier fire ignite in that same general area myself and stayed nearby for about a week, observing its behavior before deciding conditions had grown too dangerous and leaving. Right now, this fire is burning through remote, rugged terrain north of Lake Wenatchee, near the Entiat River, the Chihuahua River, and along the edge of the Glacier Peak Wilderness, some of the most difficult terrain in the state for crews to physically reach. Just a few days ago, it measured around 3,500 acres. Now it's climbed to nearly 59,300, still at zero. Containment almost doubling in just a matter of days. But here's the part that really matters, and it's not just about acreage. Strong winds pushed the fire all the way to the edge of Lake Chelan itself, and then something happened that should concern anyone living near that lake. The fire threw burning embers clear across the open water. Fire behavior experts estimate the resulting spot fires covered more than 30 combined acres on the far shore, meaning the fire essentially leapt across and reignited on the opposite side. Lake Chelan is over a mile wide in places, and people naturally assume a lake acts as a barrier that stops fire outright. That's true for an actual wall of flame. Fire can't walk across water, but it isn't true for embers. Wind can lift a burning ember, carry it across open water, and drop it onto dry brush on the far shore, sparking a brand new fire well before any flame front gets anywhere close. This same pattern is currently playing out near Vernon in Canada, where crews are watching flames reach lake shores and throw embers across in the same dangerous way. It's becoming a recognizable pattern this season, not just an isolated incident. Because of this new evacuation, orders went out along the lake almost immediately. Level 3 orders cover the South Lake Shore from Pyramid Creek to 25 Mile Creek. Leave now Level 2 orders span from Fields Point to 25 Mile Creek State Park, including Shady Pass. Robinson Lane and the park itself be ready to leave at a moment's notice. Level 1 orders stretch from Fields Point to State Route 971. Stay alert and watch for updates. That includes every campground within those zones, which matters enormously right now, given that this is the first week of August. One of the busiest weeks of the year on one of the state's busiest lakes. Families plan vacations around this place months in advance, sometimes booking cabins a year ahead. Now, some of those same families are being told to pack up and leave early. Notices are posted on both the South Shore and the Manson side of the lake, and the number of at-risk structures in the Manson area keeps climbing as the fire presses closer. Let's move quickly through the rest of Washington, since several large fires are burning right now that barely get mentioned anywhere, even locally. The Madrona, or Moderate Fire in Ferry, in Stevens counties near Enchelium, west of Lake Roosevelt, has burned around 5,100 acres and is about 17 contained, which is actually solid progress compared to some of these other fires still stuck at 0. The Ptarmigan Fire, burning in the Pasayten Wilderness north of the Metho Valley near the Pasayten airstrip along the Middle Fork, Pasayten River, has burned close to 16,000 acres and remains at 0 containment. There's also a fire near Kettle Falls in the